Right, fantastic. Thank you, everyone. Welcome to the Library Board of Trustees meeting. I'm Sharon Fitzsimmons, Chair of the library. We can make our on and we'll go around and introduce ourselves.
John Johnston, Vice President.
Waters.
Chuck Stein.
And library staff as well, please.
I'm Michael Blackwell, Library Director.
Mary Ann Bowman, Deputy Director. Brittany Cornish, Branch Manager, Charlotte Hall.
Belinda Lloyd, HR and Finance Coordinator.
Shelby Miller, Admin Assistant.
Perfect. Thank you. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda as written?
So moved.
Second.
May I please add 2 items to our agenda?
Okay. What was
Under Director's late-breaking items here, under report informational, a letter F, the LSTA grant request for next fiscal year. And under old trustee business, consideration of the OPEB investment to give to the library for next fiscal year.
we did vote on that last month?
Okay,
Are you requesting?
I'm going to ask you to think about it.
Okay.
Where do you want that to be?
Under old trustee business. Or new trustee business, since it's being reconsidered, but
Okay. Any other modifications to the agenda? Fantastic. Can we approve the 2026 minutes? So Bob moves to approve. John seconds. Oh, sorry. Did any modification to the agenda okay. We approve the minutes as written. In favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Celebrations, over to you, Michael.
great. We've got several milestones today. The first is to Nicole Hance, the Assistant Branch Manager for Information Services at the Lexington Park Library, who has now been with us for 5 years. Congratulations, Nicole, and we're hoping for many more. Haley Potter completed the early start of the Library Associate Training Institute, where people who don't have a library degree find out history of libraries, library operations, what the state library does, what library trustees do. So congratulations on that, Haley. We have some hip hip hoorays today. Annie Cross for helping a customer digitize numerous memories via our memory lab. Thanks to her patience and guidance, we had a customer convert 10 VHS tapes to digital format, and that person can then share those memories with family members digitally without having to rely on a VHS tape machine, which I'm not sure you can find even on eBay anymore.
Yeah, I had the experience of coming here and going through some tapes that were left behind just to see what was on them. It was very good, very helpful.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing technology. So, public, if you're listening, come on out and use our memory labs. We'll show you how. For Katie Daly and Kristen Middleberger, for adapting quickly and stepping in to host a program at the last minute on a Saturday when Charlotte Hall was short-staffed. This allowed the program to be held rather than being canceled. So thank you both to Katie and Kristen. And finally, to Jake Parsons for his Dungeon and Dragon programs at Lexington Park and their impact, including a lovely testimony we received for him. Thank you so much for helping special kiddos find their place in this world. I cannot imagine our lives without the library. Thank you, Jake. And take it away.
All right. Judith did not send a treasurer's report, but she said she was available for questions, and she should have one coming up shortly. It says the end of the third quarter, fiscal 26. Okay. Yeah. Smirler report, John?
Yes. Yeah, we held a retreat on April 16th for the different members of the regional boards. It was just 3 of us, and we hosted Tamar Sarnoff of the Maryland State Library Association. She discussed a little bit about the board effectiveness report, as well as a little bit of explanation of the roles of trustees compared with directors. And then on the 28th, We interviewed 3 candidates for 3 different vacancies on our board, and voted to approve them. And from St. Mary's, Hannah Cooksey; from Charles County, Lisa Price; and from Calvert, Bill Holston.
And that fills all your vacancies then?
I'm fairly sure it does. I can double check
Nice.
that, but I think we're full now.
Fantastic.
All right. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, up next, the director's report.
All right, well, we're going to kick it off with a discussion of the fiscal year 26 budget, the year we are in. This is updated as of the end of April with 83% of the year passed. And it's going to be a tight budget year. We've got several areas that are hovering right on or a little bit over where we would like them to be. The largest of our budget areas, of course, are personnel expenses, both for the staffing, the FICA, and for the health insurance. And both of those are right at 83%, 84%. So in response to this, we're looking at other areas where we might be able to save some funding and slow down some spending. Everywhere except for materials, we are going to make sure that all the material budgets are fully spent. So we'll just go through and look at some areas where maybe we're going to go over or already have, and areas where we maybe can do a little bit of saving. Over on page 2, you'll see that Lexington Parks Electric is already at 101% on the year, and Charlotte Hall is at 94% on the year. And we will, in a couple of minutes, look at a draft of next year's budget. We were adjusting for those amounts, but those are obviously going to go over. And at 85%, Leonardtown Electric it will be kind of weather dependent there. But if you look then down under and the whole thing is at 86%. So some of those are definitely already over, are going to go over. And we're just going to look for places then at the end of the year, budget lines that have not been exhausted where we can transfer funds. If you look down at operating supplies, you'll see that a number of those are nowhere near expended. So that some places we might be able to do some saving. Over on page 3, you look at the circulation collection, already 79% spent. That's our books and discs. And we've done a bunch more spending this month already, so there will be no problem completely spending out the collection funds. The digital collection you see is only at 38%, but we can make that up in an afternoon. Those we order, we get invoiced for. And so I have no doubt that both our digital and our print and physical materials will be spent out for the year. So we're looking forward to getting great new materials in for our library users. Other areas where there might be some savings would be the mobile library expenses, which are not running anything like what we perhaps budgeted them for. There might be a couple of savings here and there. For example, legal services down there towards the bottom, we've only spent 20% and not anticipating having any of those.
Michael, on the mobile library expense, is that because the mobile library isn't doing some of the things?
Oh, no, it's out all over the place. We just maybe overestimated a little bit what the costs were going to be. Okay. No, it is extremely busy. And you will see later some of the stops that they did in April, which was a very busy month for them.
Just a point on that. Even though mobile library is under budget, it's only $6,000.
Yeah, it's not a lot of money.
Not been spent. And in addition to that, as I said before, for a lot of our programming budget, it starts to be really spent out right now to prep for summer. So she is literally spending money. You'll see that our credit card is up last month and this month. It's because we're spending for summer. So they save some of their budget, significant portions of their budget to prep for summer.
Good. Okay, so that's probably not a place where we're going to find money to pay for the.
We might have a few thousand in there because we are still trying to determine the cost of fuel. And even though we thought we now had it, not anymore. So, but the rest of it is just, we budget, it's actually pretty correctly budgeted because maintenance needs to have the money in there just in, programs are obviously, again, spent out at the end of the fiscal year for summer. So fuel is our only really extra in there. And we need to have that extra because we never know what the price of fuel is going to do.
Still,
But
there
I would
could,
imagine
go
that
ahead.
you would know the rest of the digital collection leases that are coming or the licensing.
The digital collection spin out, is that what
Yeah,
you're asking about?
like what's for the rest of the year? You
Yeah,
should know that
actually,
already.
Sarah just talked to me today about an hour ago, and she is placing overdrive orders every week for the
Okay.
next 3 weeks to spend out that money.
Okay.
Yeah,
Perfect.
it's no trouble spending that out. You can do it really, literally in an afternoon. So maybe 1,000, 2,000 there, a couple of other lines. Look over on page 4. You'll see that although the other is, once again, it's a small budget line at only 35,000. It's only spent out at 40%. So there might be some savings we'll be able to see there. And then again, over, if you look on, let's see here. Look, please turn to page 6. And you'll see some other good news there in that our other income for services is exceeding expectations. So if we get a little bit more there, then that's money that will come in that maybe can help offset any sort of a deficit might see elsewhere. If you look at use of fund balance, you see that has not been touched yet. So at the start of the year, we set aside money to tide us over in case we run a little bit over the budget. That's 50,000. So we could spend $49,999 out of that and still not be over budget officially. We're trying not to touch that is sort of the aim here.
Michael, I wanted to ask about the staff development even when I was looking at this morning. Are there opportunities coming up that we're expecting?
We just completed MLA last week.
Right.
We had a number of staff go to MLA. Those bills came in yesterday. Shelby
Okay.
was entering them all, so they'll show up on the May and we'll be spending out the rest of staff development. with
I
the
wanted
MLA
to make
cost.
sure it was getting spent and not
Yes.
getting out for something else.
We have,
Certainly is, and there's more expenses coming up as well.
yeah, we had 13 people attend MLA. We encouraged more people to attend this year because one of our staff received an award. So we were there for that. And then we had 3, 4 staff. So all of them are attending. And then we also have ALA coming up, and that's at the end of June.
End of June, yeah.
So they've, so that's another expense that it kind of goes between the 2 fiscal years. So there's a lot that happens this time of year.
Good.
So we don't have any doubt that those will get spent down. So other questions about the budget, either coming out, very last page, if you look at that, you'll see that our fund balance is holding at $491,806. This is opposed to an average month expense of $5,470. So we've got just over our threshold that you've set for what you want to have in terms of a fund balance.
So you would choose to pull out of the fund balance rather than pulling out of collection for an overage? Like you would spend the entire collection, but then pull out of fund balance?
No, it should not. I'm hoping that we don't have to touch that 50,000 that we have set aside. And so the fund balance will basically go up a little bit if that's the case. But that's the goal.
I was contrasting that you had mentioned that you wanted to make sure you spent all of the collection, but then also we're looking at it and there's not really a lot to come from other categories.
No,
So-
but I'm watching it. It should be enough if
Okay.
you add them all up. So
Perfect.
I'm trying. I'm not saying we won't spend anything from fund balance, but I am doing my best to avoid it. Also setting the overages. So again, like I said, there's a lot of spending going on right now. So it's always in flux at this moment. And I'm doing my best to watch it and keep in mind of what we need to save and what we don't. But collections is always our priority, and we've been underfunded for that for a while, so we really don't want to cut collection.
No, I mean, basically, I think it's our biggest responsibility, other than perhaps paying staff, to make sure that all the collection money does get spent. I mean, that's why people come to the library for the most part. Obviously, they like our programming, they like our staff, they like access to computers, but most people are looking for a good thing to read. So, or sitting at home reserving a great ebook. So we want to make sure that all gets spent out.
Will any money from the book sale, will that be reflected in this year's budget?
The Friends did have a lovely book sale. They made $65,000. They're going to be giving us $50,000 next fiscal year.
Okay.
We don't like getting it in May or June because it doesn't give us a chance to spend much of it on the year. So they'll give it to us in July. And then they're also thinking of giving us another donation amount. They're having another larger sale at the fairgrounds. Typically, they just have a small one here at the library. They're going to try another bigger one late in the fall and see how they do with that. But I would anticipate getting more money in come December. Other questions about this year's budget? Nope. Okay, well, let's move over. This is a draft of next year's budget. It is proposed. I'm not asking for a vote on it today. We do not know the exact final amounts. The county is going to be doing its final budget next Tuesday, and it's a good idea. This is very close to what it's going to be, but until we get absolute confirmation from them on exactly what the amounts are, this is still kind of drafty. We did get money for staff raises this year. We got some money for utilities from the county. We got an extra 50,000 from the collection that they gave us due to our budget appeal, and we thank the county for their generosity. We did not have to worry about the pension money. We were thinking there was going to be about $16,000 there that because of the state budget was going to get passed down, but apparently that money passed us. They already knew about it and said, fine, bill for that, we're going to pay for it. Other expense that we were concerned about, we're not going to have for next fiscal year, and that's the Family Act money. We won't have to start doing that until January 1 of 2028. So it will not be a part fiscal year. We're anticipating costs of the library of about $9,000. We're still looking at getting final details on a lot of that, but we know we don't have to pay that amount for next fiscal year. So that will not be included in this budget. We did not get a raise for an expected rise in healthcare insurance costs. That's kind of one thing they didn't give us. But we have budgeted some of those in. So if you want to look at through some of these things, total for salaries is $4,356,802. That's up $327 from this year. And that is the largest increase that we got county. And the budget that we're is very much in line with what they gave money for. We don't have to say, all right, we're going to use it exactly as you give it to us, but we'd really like to make sure we're doing that. As you're all probably aware, having pulled up to a gas station recently, unless you've got an electric car like Bob does, costs are way up. So we're really trying to do the best we can to give the staff the most amount of money that we can in this upcoming budget. St. Mary's County, expensive place to live, and library salaries are better than they were a year ago. And thank you, County, for really giving us a generous amount the last 4 years. Of all the larger entities, we got the largest percentage increase again. Now, of course, we got the largest percentage. School is taking home twice our budget alone. Not complaining about it, just that's how things get sorted out. But we have gotten the last several years about a 12% this year, 12% increase over the previous year. So we're grateful for the generosity of the county. Thank you so much. The amount for the OPEB, you see we've built OPEB funding into it. That's not an amount we've got listed yet. You've set it at 50,000 for now, but I'd like to talk to you about that in a little while. Just for the health insurance alone for Lexington Park, Leonardtown, Charlotte Holland administration, we are looking at an additional $69,000 over last year's amount to try to factor in an expected increase there. We think it will be at least 3% and possibly as much as 5%, so we're budgeting for that.
It's an increase of 2%, but we have added employees into it. We do know the percentage.
Yeah, but the overall cost is going to be higher.
The overall cost is much higher than the 2% because which is why we're over budget this year, is because we had employees add in for special circumstances. So that's what this is, why it's so much higher.
Open enrollment is now, but we have to ask for a request.
Yeah.
So this is a time when employees can add, but of course, there's other things that happen. So if somebody turns 26, they can no longer be on their parents' insurance. They're a full-time employee here at the library. That will trigger them being able to get health insurance. A new employee coming in who's full-time might get it with the person replacing did not. So the cost can fluctuate a lot, but they are going to be higher. And we're trying to budget for that. Over on page 2, yeah.
Personnel service, 634, right?
Yeah. But just the amount for the health insurance is up 69. So if you added up Lexington Park, Leonard, we're not factoring that month that was 90,000 for OPEB and that amount.
Thank you.
Because look over next year than this year. Mobile library, about 1,000 more. Professional service, $2,000 less next year than this year. Over on page 4, other is about 5,900 more next year than this year. For equipment, it's a whopping $14,000 less. So we're not planning on getting as much in that area next fiscal year as this year. And because under technology, a couple of license is not going to have to renew next year, we're looking at $27,000 less. So the total for this year more, and it's almost all the materials and the salaries and healthcare expenses, $491,056 more next fiscal year than this year is kind of the budget we'll be proposing and asking for final approval on next year. Now, over on page 5, I'm pretty confident we're going to be getting at least one more grant for about $25,000. So it won't just be 20, but we can factor that in once we sort of know that. And I'll talk about that grant later. A number I'd really like you to look at is on page 6. And you see grand total unrestricted revenue. And it looks like this budget doesn't balance out completely, that expenses will be more than, I'm sorry, is that revenue more? $40,000 more?
Revenue will be
$40,000
$40,000 less than
less, I'm
expected.
sorry. Yeah, that's why in parentheses. So, and I'll talk to you about that in a while. But right now, that's kind of where we are as this budget. It's only got $10,000 forecast to come as out of the fund balance. So that's much less than we usually do. Um, but that's kind of what we're posing for next year. Any questions about it? And again, I'm not asking for approval or a vote on it. That will come next month.
I have a question on page 2.
Okay?
Um, you have at the bottom, staff development. What is ERC?
It's our Employee Recognition Committee. It is we have a group, committee that is run by staff members, and they provide different activities throughout the year for staff morale. And also they provide and run the summer reading kickoff and summer reading closeout at the beginning and end of summer. And
Staff day.
No, they don't
They
do
don't do staff day. Okay, is that Friends?
No,
Okay,
no, it's a different committee.
all right.
But yeah, they do morale issues for the whole library staff, run by staff members, something they asked for a few years back. So the funding is for the food that we provide and the special activities they want to do.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions
I have a
about,
question just on page 6.
okay,
At the very bottom, you have the grand total of unrestricted expenses, really, which is shown as revenue,
mm-hmm,
6050,
mm-hmm.
and then below it is 6091. What's the 6091?
It's the expenses. This is my working document, and this is where I do and make sure that I can balance the budget, and I can look at one place to see if it's balanced. So the revenue is 6050, but the restricted or the expenses, which you would see on another page, that's just pulling a number from the balance of the expenses. And the 40,000 is where I'm short right now. So this is a working budget that I have not balanced yet.
And as I say, we're not asking for approval of this.
No, I mean, it's the first time I've seen this.
No, it's the first time. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, I believe, and I just threw mine down, but I believe on page 6 of the other budget,
Yep.
it's probably either a 0 or a blank line right there, because that's where I do this working line every year when I'm creating a budget. It's just a 0 right now or an empty line because I've balanced that budget before presenting it to you.
Can I just clarify something? So the county gave us funding for a 3.66 market increase on top of a 2% COLA. With this budget, it gets us to a 2% COLA and a 3.0 market increase. We don't have enough money because of all of our other added expenses to get to that 3.66. So if Belinda tries to work it as close as she can to get us as much as we can of what the county has given us, to be as close to what the county employees are getting. She could, balance this budget and only give us like a 2.5% market increase, but we're trying to give the employees as much as we can, given gas prices and everything that's happening.
As well as what the commissioners gave us the money for.
Right.
But they didn't give us money for health insurance. So that 0.66 is going to be going towards the health insurance, which is also personnel services. That's all grouped together. But this budget that I'm trying to balance gets us as close to what the commissioners gave us money for as I could at this point in
And we're
time.
still short $40,000. So.
More to come. Other questions on that?
If, if you're gonna ask us to approve this next time,
Yes.
would we get it? Could we get it a couple weeks beforehand so we can take a look at it?
Sure.
I'm not
I think,
trying to
I
figure out what
think, yes. However, we're waiting for the county. They'll finalize their budget next Tuesday, and I have a promise from the financial department. We'll send you then exactly what you're getting for each of those line items we're giving you something for. And if they do that in a timely fashion, you should have it probably 2 weeks ahead of time, but we'll have to see.
I need the letter from the county that tells me the total number they're going to give us because it's been,
Sure.
it's sometimes been slightly off of what we calculated based on what they said.
My only point is if you want me to do this, I need a couple days to look at it. before I
You
approve it.
typically you would
Not
have
before.
this,
You get it a week before.
yeah,
before you
typically
leave.
you'd have this at least a week ahead of
That would be
time
fine.
rather than the day of, just because
That would be fine.
this I say is informational and it's not necessarily expecting a vote on it.
The board packets are always printed and put at the desks 1 week before this board meeting, and they're also sent to you via email and the Google Docs 1 week before.
No, that's right. And if I get it a week before, that'll be enough time.
We'll make sure that you have it in plenty of time.
Thanks.
Other questions? Well, moving on to the Charlotte Hall renovation update. We had another meeting with the architects this morning. It's coming right along. The grant application is due on the 22nd, so next week. We have sent in a draft of that to the head of the committee and gotten replies to that. So what I've presented for you now, this is not final, but it's kind of what we're working with going into the grant. The architect is hired through December, so we're going to be doing some adjustments to this. Today, for example, we talked about expanding the multi-purpose / meeting room to bigger than what it is drawn as here. But you get some idea of where we're going with this. There'll be an addition up front that will become a new lobby. Open to the library to the left then. And right now, we don't necessarily have in the plan we're working from the information desk there, but we think that's ultimately where it will go. A multi-purpose room, courtyard. So we have some good construction estimate costs. And for the construction itself, $6,513,654 with that addition on the front. Without the addition, we're still right at about 5 million. Some soft budget costs of 622,000. And then with contingency and a furniture and equipment budget, and furniture and equipment is not typically covered by the grant, that would have to come out of the county share. A total of $8,308,337. So the county budget is about 5 million with 500,000 contingency. We're going to ask for a $3 million grant from the state. And if we don't get it all, then obviously we'll have to do some value engineering. But over on this table here, they're not ready for the public yet because they're not final. You'll see document after document after document with lots and lots of details. So if you want to take a look and see really where we are right now, down to the minute details, what each little thing will cost, they're all in these documents here. And I'm happy to have you take a look. But as I say, they're kind of not ready for the public yet because we're still doing a lot of work. When everything's final, we'll make sure the public has a chance to see this. I will say that there's a condition report. And we're going to be using that a lot in our grant request. There's a nice metal roof, which you can see daylight through, which explains why we have tiles that are discolored on the roof. All kinds of things. The building is very far from airtight. So the plan is to put in some new windows and even more windows to try to open up a better view. And make sure that it's sort of going to be environmentally efficient, because right now, although costs are not as high as our other libraries because the space is smaller, it is far from being a sustainable building. So the architect's done a really good job looking at all of this. Becomes a question of, what kind of grant we can get as to what the final things will look like. I have been asked when I've appeared to talk about the budget in front of the county commissioners, well, what about Southern Maryland, Regional Library Association? At this point, they're finishing up their different source than we do till 2030. And that actually the decision to move out of that facility is not even at the state librarian level. It's going to have to be considered by the Maryland Department of Budget Management. So to have them move, there's going to be a lot of stuff that's going to have to be going through. So we're going to move forward with our plans for Charlotte Hall without considering Smyrna right now. I don't think we've got any other choice since the grant request is next, week. But the good news is that because we have the architect through December, once we find out, and we should know by July, what kind of grant we might be getting, we can zero in on final plans and know what the budget will be kind of going in exactly. And also have some sense, is Smyrna going to be willing to share any space with us? What are their long-term plans? So because the grant has to be submitted, we're kind of pushing forward a little bit faster than knowing all the details, but I don't think we've got any choice if we're going to get the money for fiscal year 28. It's a state capital grant. I'm sorry? It's an annual grant. Every year, state of Maryland puts aside $7.5 million for library construction. And when we did this building, we got 1.6 million. That amount, it was only 5 million then, so we got more than anybody else when we asked. This year, although the amount was 7.5 million, libraries had asked for up to 14 million, and the state went ahead and said, okay, fine, we'll do all of that. So it's an election year. I don't know if they'll do that next year, but it's possible that more than 7.5 million will ultimately be given out, and we're gonna ask for a hefty chunk of it. I'm told that about 9 other libraries are requesting money, so it's going to be competitive. I mean, we'll just have to see what we can get.
So what is, other than the immediate needs that we know we need to fix the roof and the bathrooms, what is the drawback to waiting a year till we have a
Probably more. One thing that we could do, and I suspect construction will not be finished during fiscal year 28. I mean, you have to allow time at the beginning of the year to, bid it out and get the subcontractors in place. So what we did with Leonardtown is we got $1 million one year and 600,000 the next year.
Assumption is you'd have to get another large grant to renovate that space. So, oops, sorry. So I guess we wouldn't be wasting the money if you got the grant this year and asked for another one next year.
No, and because we have the architect hired through December, if Smyrna would say, okay, we'll share space with you, and here's the space we'll share, we'd still have the money and we could say, okay, we're just going to now modify our design, which would be done by December and plenty of time to start construction a year from now in July. So it's gonna far from being wasted. The kind of wild card here is Smyrna going to leave completely? And my understanding from them is that they couldn't do that until the year 20. Into it in 2030 and said, oh, we can have the whole building. It would be probably not as fiscally responsible to put it off till then.
Sharon,
Oh.
I think one of the drawbacks is that the county currently has money for it. And we don't know what will happen in the future if we say, no, we're going to wait. That's my biggest concern is they have the money now and they're willing to spend it on the library.
Well, that's what I'm telling the people who are writing in the grant, but I wasn't going to say that in public because no, they'll give us the money no matter what, right? It is a concern. You know, the money's there. There's eagerness to do something in the northern end of the county. We'd really like to deliver this.
How long do you anticipate many talks with the Smyrna folks to wrap up so we have a good idea of whether we'd be using some of their space?
I've been told that until they finish their facility study, which will be done by the end of June because it's a fiscal year project, they can't talk to us about anything.
All right.
But they are on the schedule to come talk to us in July along with the commissioners,
Good.
as far as I understand.
And the commissioners have several times said, well, can we invite them? And I've provided contact information for our state librarian and for the folks at Smyrna to invite to a county commissioner meeting or some other meeting where they could start to have this conversation.
Yeah, I think that would be good for a productive relationship with Smyrna.
So I'm really excited about the plans, even as is with this addition, assuming we can get that. It's going to add space. It's going to really open up the library. I think new windows, more windows, a redesigned area, and unifying a staff area, I think will be good for morale there at Charlotte Hall.
But it
So
Looks like it still doesn't solve the storage problem that we talked about last month.
it doesn't. Remember, this is not final. We had a meeting today where we said, we're going to have to think about a bigger meeting room, aren't we?
And this also isn't to scale. I'm not sure that many chairs would actually fit at the table.
Into the meeting room. Right now, it's the same size, actually, although it doesn't look it.
I mean, the furniture doesn't look like it's potentially not to scale in this drawing.
Oh, no. This is a conceptual drawing. You actually have over here, I didn't want to give you a 57-page document because that's a lot. When it's a final document, we'll happily share it with everybody, but it is printed on ledger-sized paper over there, so you can actually see it a lot better. And you can see a better idea of what the furniture is going to look like because there is a drawing with the furniture there. Okay, well, moving on to funding for the Lunch and Learn summer program, you see there is a handout about this. So what happened is for years we've been doing Lunch and Learn with the schools and with Department of Social Services, and they were getting grants for that, and they were able to give the kids hot meals, as many as 50 kids a day at the Lexington Park Library. Well, they didn't get the grant, so they're not doing it. But we're going to have hungry kids in the library in Lexington Park. So we have put out a call for donations, and we're doing very well. This is a county that does care. So Department of Social Service Advisory Board that I serve on is giving $1,000. The Department of Social Services giving $1,000. We have got lots of food donations already. We've got another $500 donation just today. So what we're trying to do is provide, and you can see a list of the kind of snacks we're looking at on that handout that you got. Granola bars, fruit cups, crackers, pretzels, popcorn. We're trying to get fairly healthy stuff, but basically just things that we know the kids, some of whom may not have a lot of food at home, are going to have something when they're in the library, and it's self-serving to the degree when they're not hungry, they're a lot better behaved. So we're making requests out to the community. Other area businesses have started stepping up for us. So we have no idea what the total cost will be. So, well, what's your goal? We simply don't know. We've never done this before, but we think we're off to a great start, and we're really thankful for the community so far, and hopeful that people will over the summer continue to be generous.
Slim Chickens has already said that they would donate and sponsor one meal for the kids. So
Who was that?
Slim Chickens.
Where are
Slim
you
chicken.
storing all of this food?
It's a good question. Where are we storing it?
On the
Right
top
now, it's
shelf?
in the admin office.
Yeah.
and-
There's some out there. There's some in the office. There's a box at Lexi, a box at Hall. We're working on that. We actually just had a chat message going today as to where we were going to start putting it. But it's a good problem to have, and we want to be able to feed these kids for as long as possible. This program was going to be dependent on whether or not we got enough food to last the summer, and we are already feeling pretty good about it. We have $1,000 donation from social services boards and $1,000 donation from social services department.
You
So,
can use those top shelves that were the bookshelves that were too high for
Mhm.
your customers
Yep.
to reach.
and the heritage, part of the heritage funds that bought the cookbooks, that's a donation to us. So part of that will go back into this.
Yeah. So what's happening at your library? You have a handout that you like presented to you in strategic plan order. So I shall reorder it via strategic plan for you. The first is digital literacy, and we've got a couple things that we're doing there. Very bottom of the page, we did have a program at the Public Library Administration about digital content, and 100 people attended that. We are at the library presenting a series of webinars called The Digital Shelf with the chief officers of state libraries, COSLA, and a nonprofit vendor called Lyrasis. So about once a month, we have a webinar that's all about digital content or some aspect of it. And the last two have had 149 and then 147 people attend, which is very good for a webinar. And they're literally logging in from all over the world. We've had people attend from Europe, a lot of people from Canada will attend. So it's just hot topics that's happening right now. One was about what the publishers are offering and why they won't do better with their licenses. The most recent one is looking at how we order and can we do that more efficiently by changing hold queues. Hold queues are so many people reserve something, therefore we buy one. But with digital, it's very tough. You might want a very different hold queue for an audiobook that's $200 than a children's picture book, which might be 10. So we're just trying to play around with that kind of idea. We have one other thing that's happening. In our Palace app, we have anytime content, anytime audio content. There's about 9,000 titles. Well, unfortunately, despite many years of effort, we're just not getting enough traction in Palace to have made that fiscally sound. About $9 a download. So we're going to instead get some anytime content. It won't be nearly as much. It's only going to be about 150 titles, but it'll be shared regionally in our Libby app, which a lot more people look at. So although we got rid of Hoopla for very good reasons, we're still trying to make sure no matter what, if you log into this app, you can get something you like. And as many people as want to will be able to look at that kind of audiobook content. And it has the advantage over the collection we were doing in Palace. I think we'll probably have to drop that collection. It's just too expensive on a cost per use basis. These will be newer titles and pretty high demand titles, including what's the hockey book called?
Heated rivalry.
Heated Rivalry is going to be in there. So if you've ever wanted to read the book that broke the internet this year, you'll be able to listen to Heated Rivalry.
Michael, you mentioned about hold at hold times and the hold links, and I'm wondering if you had looked at like the cost of the books, but had you also looked at potentially shortening some of the checkout times for things like children's books that you can finish in an afternoon? It's going to be different than a 400-page novel.
Yeah, and so what we've been kind of looking at, and this is a national thing, and several libraries are kind of pioneering is okay, here's something that's relatively inexpensive, but will be high demand. We'll get a lot of those, and there will be basically no hold queue or little hold queue on that, versus something that's so very expensive, we simply can't afford for people to say, oh, I'm gonna, I don't have to wait for this $200 for 2 years audiobook. So that's kind of what we're experimenting with, is the idea that you can get more checkouts for the same amount of money because our budgets aren't going up, and fulfill demand better. And people are, for some of these really expensive things, I'm just going to have to wait, sorry, until such time as maybe ebook law or two. And Illinois looks like they're close to passing, which will trigger Connecticut. And then the publishers will have 2 states with about 15 million people where if they don't come talk about price, they won't be able to sell in that state. So lots going on here. But that's sort of what those are about. Over on 2, which is Embrace Innovation at Lexington Park, if you haven't been there recently, the flooring, walls, and furniture on the way for the maker space, and the walls are going up at the end of May. The sink has been installed. So that maker space is really coming together nicely. We are over at the detention center setting up the recordable storybook program. And that's innovative for us, certainly. People who are there will be able to record a story, and their children would be given a copy of the book. And so they can listen to their parent read the story and read along with them. And just a kind of great way to bring families together in difficult circumstances and promote literacy. Number 3 is community gathering. And if you look at all the events we had under events and services, we're really reaching out to a lot of people, and outreach. We had a really productive month in April. You see hundreds of people at some of these. 18 story times for 441 children. So we're certainly thriving as a community gathering space here. For Young Minds, I'd like to point to 2 things in particular. It's very top of the list. We have 2 Great Mills High School interns at Lexington Park Library working with the Patuxent Partnership. So they're getting professional experience at the library, and Patuxent Partnership is the one who are paying for it, which is nice. Thank you, Patuxent Partnership, for working with us on that. That came through the also through the local management board. And the Story Champs Literacy Grant, that's where we have been training tutors and sending them to after-school places, including building bridges to practice reading with the kids. And we'll have a fuller report for you once that grant is over at the end of June, how many people we saw, how many people were trained. But we'll be continuing that in a summer program with the Building Bridges program. So reaching out there quite a bit to Young Minds as well.
I wanted to ask it, someone brought up with me, and I wanted to get a little better feedback. with the library's goal being to connect people with ideas and information in a diverse community, valuing opportunity and education for all. There's a lot of things you can do under that umbrella. And I'm wondering how the library prioritizes with limited staffing, limited time, which programs do we invest in? Which programs do we repeat invest in? And which programs we would not choose based on that criteria?
Well, I'm going to turn that over to Mary Ann.
I mean, that's not really an easy question to answer.
Yeah.
Which is why I'm turning it over. No, really. Some cases, the amount of staff time we have and costs. Go ahead.
I was going to say, we actually get the staff together and talk about what should our priorities be. And that's really how we decide what we're going to focus on. We're always going to focus on literacy. There's some things that we are just always going to prioritize, literacy being one of them. And as far as what programs we're going to keep doing, it depends on statistics. We just had a programming meeting today, and we were talking about how our story time numbers are down, or I'm sorry, not story time necessarily, but our school age programs. And we think a lot of it has to do with the workforce going back to the office.
Yeah.
And parents are tired. So they prioritize, sports or whatever. And so they're not bringing their kids to library programs. And so we were trying to figure out, well, maybe we need to change what we're programming on. Brittany is a millennial. So she said, I'm going to take my kids to a program that is going to make me feel good. What was it that you said? Nostalgic programs. So I can't think of an example right now. So we're constantly having those kind of meetings. And so when we're building our strategic plan, that's how it's all staff input and what current events are going on and what trends are happening in libraries.
And when our programmers, they fill out a programming approval form that goes from start ideas with branch managers, assistant branch managers. But when they put it on the form for admin to look at, one of the questions is, what strategic goals does this event help to meet? So they have to put some thought into it because that's a required question on there. And yeah, I gave the suggestion today in the meeting that the 90s are coming back, and I was a kid in the 90s, so I would want to bring my son to like a more nostalgic program to where we would both be interested in, and really hitting on the pop culture notes, because we are in a more digital age, so the kids have access to the popular pop culture things. So I know the mindset, at least for my kiddo, is he wants to do things that are interesting enough to where he can go back and connect with his friends on at school on like a Monday. And like Marianne said, we're all just a little burnt out and just trying the best that we can do.
Did that answer your question? Okay. Do you
Well,
want to add something,
I've,
Michael?
I've actually got 4 sample programs for you that might help answer it a little bit. And sometimes it's what we can do by partnering. And we do reach out and get community partners to come and do programs. So at Lexington Park and actually all the locations, the St. Mary's County Circuit Court offers, these are upcoming programs. You asked for a few of those, but not all 850 that we're going to be doing in the summer. The St. Mary's County Circuit Court offers a free family law self-help legal clinic to provide legal assistance advice regarding family law. So there's no RSVP for that. It's first come, first serve. You come here and you say, I want to know about custody or visitation what are, you know, and you get free legal advice. And we do those in an expungement clinic as well. So often we'll reach out to a community partner like that who can come in and do something that we obviously are not expert in. Um, at Throughout the summer, we're doing Spark, which is where a mobile library goes to a park. And it's an all ages story time. And then they have music, bubbles, playtime, artworks, crafts. And those typically bring in 125 people each one. So that's the sort of thing that we can do with the mobile library. At Charlotte Hall, we're going to have a tie-dye block party for young folks. Ages 8 to 18, we'll give a cotton bandana per person to tie-dye, but we let them bring other things and we'll provide the tie-dye and give them 20 minutes to do a tie-dye and show them how to do that. Um, but as Marianne said, a lot of it does try to privilege literacy and reading. And in statistics showing that reading is down, with so many things competing for it. And college teachers, you could say this better than I, reporting that in some cases their students can't get through an entire book. I think an emphasis on literacy is where we need to stay.
Thank you.
The question, you talked about Spark, is that during, let's say like sporting events when they have the Little League or, no?
Spark is on, they did a special one for spring, last Saturday. But Spark is our, story time in the park. It's the summer program. So this year it's on Mondays. And because it's in the park system actually doesn't really let us do that on Saturdays in the parks because of the sports and because the parking lots are full. We can't take up space for that. So they actually don't let us reserve that space on a Saturday.
But we find that they are coming out in very good numbers just to see us. So that's great news.
I had another question.
Sure.
For the makerspace in Lexington Park, have you been getting submissions for the mural? Yes. Okay.
Yes, and I think they reviewed them yesterday, Amy Ford said. So we should be selecting somebody soon.
Yeah, have you seen the mural here? The copy
Yes,
center?
over in the business area where you can the public can photocopy. There's a mural on the wall now that was just finished 2 days ago. Yeah.
I
So
like the one at the book club. That's nice.
Yeah, that's our staff wanting to make things.
Nice. Okay.
I think it started because we have cones on the sidewalk, you know, the walkway, because the floor still has a crack in it. So we have cones. And I said I was tired of looking at the orange cones. And so now the staff are decorating them. So if you go in, you'll see one is a marine, it's the all fish, and
I think we've got a lighthouse too.
the other one is a light.
Yeah, but we have a lighthouse.
That lighthouse
They're
has
very
light in it.
creative.
Oh, the lighthouse has a light in it.
Does it?
Yes,
They're so creative.
Serena did that.
It makes me happy not to look at those orange cones anymore.
They change it every season.
Other questions about upcoming programs or what's happening at your library? Lots going on. There will be Library Services and Technology, LSTA Act money next year. Each library system in Maryland should be able to get about $30,000 worth. And we are going to go with Charles County Library to have our facilities master plan redone, which will probably be $27,000. You get an architect to come. They look at what the condition of the building's in, what are things you could do with your building, are you growing in the area, and just make recommendations about the facilities. And in order to apply for these grants, you really need a pretty current one. Ours is going to be about 5, 6 years old, getting time to do it again. So that also has the advantage of not really requiring a lot of staff effort. I will work with the architect on that, and they'll come in. You'll probably get interviewed. What do you think about our buildings? And what are areas you would improve, that kind of thing. But that's what we're going to ask for next year. And because we're asking with Charles, pretty certain to get that. So the state likes you to go in with somebody else to on a joint grant project. So we'll probably, that's what we're going to be asking for, and I imagine we'll probably get that. On to approval of monthly expense ledger and credit card
Before
reconciliation.
we get there, do we need to take a break? Anybody want to take a break or do we want to press on?
The break.
Okay, let's take a break and come back in 5 minutes.
You are up to approval of
Yep.
the
Next
financial.
thing is the approval of the monthly expense ledgers and credit cards. Going to presume we've all looked at it ahead of time. So are there any questions or things we wanted to bring up before we approve? I will entertain a motion to approve the expense ledger and credit card.
I'll make a motion to approve the monthly ledger and the credit card report.
Dorothy moves to approve. And Ramona seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Moving on. Old trustee business OPEB.
Yes, you probably know where I'm going with this. Um, I submitted you a draft budget that was $40,000 short. OPEB expenses are expected to be 90 for the year, and you've covered 50. I wonder what I'm going to ask for. I would really like you to consider removing from the OPEB fund a full 90,000 rather than 50. The stock market is doing just fine. It doesn't seem to be, there's fluctuation, but it at a record high here. I think that given the difficulty that our employees are having with a economy that is becoming very challenging, that giving as much as we possibly can to them um, in the upcoming fiscal year is what my recommendation would be. I'm not particularly worried about the OPEB investments. They seem to be doing just fine. Um, and when Bolton presented to you, they said one thing you can do with this is simply start emptying it out. And you said, fine, we'll make that decision on an annual basis. But if we could know right now, if that 50,000 is final, you tell me that. But if you can do the full 90, then we come back next month with that $40,000 deficit basically gone and presented you a balanced budget with the OPEB money that you'd give to us, which you could take out on a monthly basis, as long as you're giving a certain amount per month, or you could do it all at once, however you want to do it. If that $90,000 is there, then we are able to give the staff 40,000 more. So that would be my ask here, is that you consider for next fiscal year, and this is not binding going forward, it's just next fiscal year, that you consider using 90,000 from the investment rather than 50 to help fund next year's budget.
So we had voted last month that we were going to make that decision after the commissioners finalized after the commissioners had returned a full budget. So we're not making any decisions today because we won't have that information until next month. But is there any discussion that we want to have or questions we need to ask?
Well, we know pretty much what we're going to get. The problem is that if we don't know, then we can't really present a final budget to you next month.
Belinda, how difficult would it be to do to put together two plans and to have one that was a contingency with and one that was a contingency without, so we can see the difference and where we take it from otherwise?
I can do that.
Okay. If I think that would probably be best because it will give us a very visual example of what the difference is and what we would be agreeing to, especially after the solid numbers come in.
So basically you want us to present a budget with the 3%?
No,
Or
it's a budget with them paying OPEB 50,000 and a budget with them paying OPEB at 90,000. And I'll make the additional line changes wherever I can.
Mhm.
And so the changes that I can choose from are reducing the salary increase, the market increase, or taking from line items slowly, minusculely, and taking away that any kind of buffer I have and getting us close to maybe going over again in electricity or something like that, or taking more from the fund balance. So those would be the options I'll have to look at to decide what to present to you. But yeah.
This, assuming that we would be voting on the final budget for the June meeting,
That is.
and would that leave you in a time crunch?
No, we always vote for the final one in June. It needs to be voted for in June so that I can start it on July 1. Because otherwise we would be entering July 1 without a budget.
Okay.
So are you talking about the $40,000 that's in OPEB on
Yes.
page 1 of the budget?
Yes.
Yes.
And you'd like that to be zero?
Yes.
Yes.
We would like a total of 90 from the OPEB fund,
Yes. we
and
want-
currently it is pledged at 50.
that would take that expense line down to zero.
Yes,
Zero, and that makes up the $40,000.
Yes.
College, or not?
yes.
Okay. I understand what you're asking for.
Yeah, absolutely. That is correct. Well, moving
Right.
on then.
Next thing on the agenda is oh, sorry.
The 90,000 is what the cost is for OPEB. So you would see it in this current year's budget. So that line would say 90,000, where the 40,000 is, it would say 90,000, but you have already pledged 50,000. So I took 50,000 off. And so now it's a $40,000 expense. So the 90,000 won't be in this budget because you've pledged to cut that expense.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So next on the schedule is the approval of the capital grant request.
Yes, next, by the 22nd, we need to submit a $3 million grant request, and I'm simply asking you to approve that we submit the request in that amount. And I will need your signature on it. I have a draft of it, but I'd like to finish it. So what we do is just the board would vote today, and then next week I will send you something to sign, which looks like this. You just need a signature and a date on the bottom of it. But I want to change the verbiage a little bit of the project description, but I would like the board to vote today to just, yes, let's go ahead and try to get $3 million.
This is a request to the state.
That is a request to the State Capital Grant Fund.
And I would note in this summary of the project description, it does say that they're also exploring relocation of Smyrla, which would unlock an additional 13,000 square feet. So that is baked into this proposal to talk about the potential pivot before December.
Yeah, my only concern about that is that they'll look at it and say, if you're doing that, then we're not going to give you any money now. So I need to.
And then we'll try again next year with better
I need to
information.
think about this, but
I don't
we
have
will
any problem
have a
with
more
that.
final version of that. And so, but I think we should ask for it no matter what. So if I could get approval on that.
So as long as it does include that phrasing that there is a pivot. And if they decline because of that, we can try again next year.
Well, if Smyrla doesn't give up anything in 2030, we're putting it off a long time, but we'll just see. We have to
figure
say
it out.
it's an unknown right now.
Mhm.
So yeah, we'll do our best.
Thoughts, questions, other comments about the grant application?
I move we approve it.
Bob moves to approve.
I make the motion. Do I second the motion? Or?
Ramona seconds that motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. So next week, you will have a chance to see, but I will make sure that that verbiage is included in the project description. I'll email you the form, and you'll see that, and you can just sign and email it back. But I will need your signature. That'll be easier for you than coming into the library. But if you want to come to the library, you can do that too. But I think it'd be easier just to go ahead and email that document. Thank you. The other thing I was going to ask about is you've moved the director's annual assessment from the anniversary of employment to the end of the fiscal year. So my question to you is, do you want a report from me in June that you would consider in July? Or do you want to wait till the year is over? Not that I think anything is going to really change a whole lot. I'll send my report to you in July and you would consider it for August.
I think if you have the ability to have it done by June, I think that's quite reasonable because as you're saying, I don't think there's anything that's
Yeah,
particularly.
I can certainly do that. I was given 4 goals. Two of them I agreed when sitting down with the two of you who were discussing my assessment with me that they had already been accomplished. So that's going to be fairly easy. The others I will talk about and then just give you a larger view of sort of what my activities are and what I think um, qualifies me to to be considered to go on in my job. Since you are unlike any other library employee, I do report at your pleasure. So I will get you that before your next trustee meeting, and then you would just set up a time and a process by which you would do that assessment.
So if we can come next meeting with schedules, calendars to look at after the next meeting is June 11th. So look at your schedule for the 2 weeks after that to see when we could get together to do that assessment. We typically do like to have everyone present to be able to give that feedback, and that is a closed session. So because it is discussing staffing. Yep. So last 2 weeks of June is what we'd be looking at there. Or potentially into July if we need to. But that would be, and so we'll schedule that at the next meeting.
At the next meeting.
Yeah, because I know schedules change
Yes,
and
true.
we can flex. All right. Any other items of business that we need to cover? All right, then. Well, let's close out this meeting. Thank you all very much. Go and take a look at the blueprints.